Hey everybody, it's your boy Chase, and the main trip starts now. I'm rolling out of Singapore and heading towards Vietnam. It was a rainy day when I left, clearly Singapore crying that I'm leaving. It was a nice moment passing in the grab some of the iconic locations that I remembered from when I first moved to Singapore 2 years ago, such as MBS and the famous Singapore Flyer. I was also fortunate and lucky to have my boy Felicio, who managed to jump in the grab and see me off as a final farewell. We got to the airport and I got my stuff checked in, and we decided to go ahead and kill some time. Changi has a long streak of being named the best airport in the world. It initially won the title in 2000, has won and held on to it multiple times, and was again named the top airport in 2025. The iconic attraction has to be the Jewel, a 40-meter indoor waterfall dropping through a glass dome wrapped in a terraced forest. It's designed to make an airport feel like a city park. If you've got time, it's free to visit and explore, and it's easily accessible from terminals 2 and 3 at the airport. After visiting the Jewel, we decided to walk around and we made a little quick detour. Anyone that knows me knows that I gotta go and see the Pokémon Center. They have one here at the Jewel, and I had to get one last little peek in to see what the latest and greatest is. After that, we grabbed some lunch at Din Tai Fung for some Xiaolong Bao and a little goodbye beer. Not a bad idea before you hop on your flight. It's about an hour flight from Singapore to Ho Chi Minh. As you get near, the stunning Mekong Delta begins to come into view. I landed just before 6 p.m., got my bags in order to grab pickup. If it's your first time in Southeast Asia, Grab is a necessary app. It's a local rideshare app in most countries and is typically the cheapest and safest option, especially to and from the airport. The official name has been Ho Chi Minh City since 1976, but plenty of locals still say Saigon day to day. It's Vietnam's commercial engine, fast, loud, and scooter heavy. And most first-time sites sit right here in District 1 where I was staying. My ride from the airport to District 1 took about 45 minutes and cost a little over 150,000 dong, which is about $5.75 US. I got checked in and settled into my cozy little hostel bed and grabbed my things to explore the local area. Bùi Viện is District 1's nightlife spine. Neon, open-air bars, music from every direction, and let me tell you, equal opportunity dancers on the tables. Girls and guys, which tells you everything you need to know about the energy here. Beers typically will range between 25,000 and 40,000 dong, which is less than $2. I was getting hungry, and I've been craving bún chả ever since I had it in Hanoi. It consists of grilled pork, fresh herbs, light dipping sauce. The best bún chả is in Hanoi, but it is easy to love anywhere. Plate was 120,000 dong. Daylight slows the city down just enough to notice the parks and statues. Before I headed out, I grabbed breakfast at the hostel, which was fried eggs and noodles, plus some Vietnamese coffee. It was surprisingly good and much better than what you might expect from a hostel. I explored on foot and cut through the park. A couple of guys waved me over to try Dai Quao, a shuttlecock that you kick. It's a casual street sport you spot in squares and schoolyards. The rules themselves are similar to badminton, except you play with your feet. I eventually made my way to Independence Palace. The site anchors District 1's modern history. The current palace opened in the mid-1960s, replacing the old colonial residence. On April 30th, 1975, tanks broke through these gates, the moment many Vietnamese mark as the end of the war. Inside, the rooms were preserved in that 60s state. Formal halls upstairs, crisis rooms below. Overall, the architecture was beautiful, but one of the most striking things was the underground bunkers that still had original maps from the Vietnam War from the North and the South. Tickets were around 30,000 dong when I went, but seeing as it was National Day, it was free for locals, which also meant it was very busy. I spent a little over an hour exploring the entire building from top to bottom. It's fascinating to see the old architecture, and again presents you with a nice introduction into Vietnam's history, as well as the Vietnam War and the conflict between the North and the South. After Independence Palace, I started to make my way towards the War Remnants Museum. In between, I had to take a little lunch break. Pho is the reset button. Clear broth, herbs, steam, meat, and a cold drink. I eventually made my way to the War Remnants Museum. As you approach out front, you see American-made aircraft and armor mark the scale of the war. Inside, curated galleries focus on civilian impact, journalism, prisons, and the long tail of conflict. It's heavy by design and worth taking slowly. Entry into the museum is about 40,000 dong. Important to note that there's a separate line for locals and tourists. Again, as it was National Day, it was free for locals, so don't do what I did and just queue up in the longest line. The line for locals was much longer that day than it was for tourists. If I had known that at the time, I could have gotten in much quicker than I did. The museum itself is broken up into several wings, each one with its own focus area, ranging from weapons and tactics used by both sides throughout the war, to journalism, Agent Orange, and its effects that still go on throughout the local populations. After the museum, I headed towards the Saigon Central Post Office. This is another historic landmark within Ho Chi Minh City. It was originally built in 1860, and the current building, which stands here in this clip, was completed in 1891. It's another landmark that has little shops inside that you can go to for souvenirs, and is a popular spot for people to come and take photos in front of. At this point, I've been doing a lot of walking around town and found myself in need of another refuel, so I went over to Bin Na Street Food. There's lots of excellent stalls located throughout the area, but I decided to pop into one for a little banh mi. The bread was perfect with a little pate, fresh vegetables and pork. I got the banh mi and a Saigon beer, which came to 90,000 dong, which is around $3.50 USD. As I mentioned earlier in this video, September 2nd marks Vietnam's National Day, commemorating the 1945 Independence Declaration in Hanoi. Being here on a milestone year adds weight to the days loop we've just walked. Colonial legacies, the wartime 60s, and a city that hasn't stopped moving since. Stages were set up, rain came down, fireworks still happened. I had managed to meet up with some other tourists in the area, and we initially had a good spot, but it didn't take long for a lot of people to clear out as rain started to pour down on our heads. But I'll give them this, they were not going to let this stop them from celebrating 80 years. At the end of the night, fireworks still went off in the sky regardless. I had booked a tour for the next day to go out to the Ho Chi tunnels. Located northwest of the city, these tunnels are preserved sections of the wartime tunnel network. Dinh is the more visitor-ready site. Surface-level demos, trap displays, and short crawl routes widened for safety, and also for general large tourists like myself. There's an optional firing range there as well, where you can shoot a variety of Vietnam-era weapons under the supervision of Vietnamese soldiers. Each round costs 65,000 dong, and they need to be purchased by the magazine, so the cost can add up quick. From there we went to what has to be one of the highlights of the tour, which is the tunnels themselves. We went down into a 100-meter long section of the tunnels, which again, mind you, has been widened for tourists. We followed our guide who led us through the sections of the tunnels and called out exits that were spaced out every few meters. As you can see, the tunnels were so narrow that I had to get down on my hands and knees just to crawl through them. It presents a very stark and clear picture of what life was like for the local Viet Cong. After heading back, I decided to meet up with some of the other guests at the hostel, go down to Bùi Viện Street, and enjoy a few Saigons in Saigon. Ho Chi Minh City is a marvel to behold. Noise, food, and history that all comes together beautifully at the end of the day. I really can't wait to see what else Vietnam has in store for me as I continue my journey and head up to Da Nang next. If you've enjoyed what you've seen in this video, I turned some of my favorite shots throughout my travels into posters over at our Etsy store, Travel Texture. Links pinned in the comments. If you've enjoyed everything else that you've seen and want to follow me on this adventure, like, subscribe, and hit that bell button for notifications. Here's looking for the next one as we go out and chase the Uncharted.